Hey everybody, welcome to our Self-Storage Income YouTube channel. Today we're talking about something that is a very big subject, so I have to start out and preference it. This is 101, okay? We have on the podcast, Self-Storage Income Podcast, we go into much more depth. We bring in CFOs and other people to talk about value, but that's what this is all about, okay? This is about the value of a storage facility. It's one of the most important things you will ever do when investing is understanding value. We need to clear up a few things right off the bat, okay? Value and price are not the same. Yes, we have efficient market theory, right? EMT, but efficient market theory only works in the long run. It doesn't work in the short run. I don't even believe in it, okay? What that states, efficient market theory, is that any time that there's a buyer and a seller and there's agreed upon price, that's what it's worth. That's not how this works, okay? We are buying a real estate asset that has revenue that comes in and expenses. You need a return on your investment, and that value is arbitrary, and that's what you need to understand first and foremost. The value to you will be different to me and to other people. So you need to construct value first and foremost off what you're looking for, okay? The price needs to be set upon the value that you derive from that asset. That value comes in two forms: return to shareholders and risk, or yourself. So value is derived between the returns that you get and the risk associated with it. So if a storage facility to you needs to derive less returns than I need it to derive, you can pay more, right? And one might view the risks differently than the others. So I like to buy underperforming facilities and turn them around. That may be too high risk to somebody, so they will seek lower returns to get a more stable asset, okay? Because that's the value of it to them. Now, when I'm looking at constructing value and when we're underwriting our deals, we're focusing on this revenue management, right? I'm focusing on how much I'm putting into it, the risk I'm taking, the returns that I'm getting out of the storage facility. You have to remember there are two sides. There are controllables and there are uncontrollables, okay? This is very important to know when you're investing in self-storage and what you're buying. So I have controllables, things like management, offerings, services. I have rate management or dynamic pricings, things that I can do inside. Lines of revenues, we're talking offerings. So what other sources of revenues can I create or are there in the storage facility? And advertising. Is that being done? Can I bring in new customers, right? The look and the feel. Maybe I spruce it up. Maybe I make it look nicer. All those kind of things that you can affect the returns and the risk of the asset. This is all under controllables, and there may be lots of different avenues and things that I haven't mentioned here. But then there's uncontrollables, okay? You have market, supply, demand, and capital pricing. All right, this is really important to understand because the supply and demand is probably the most important thing when you're understanding value. This changes value dramatically for us because I cannot affect it. And that increases risk. So when you're looking at the returns that that asset will project to you in the future, 5-6 years, right? I am looking at, am I going to be able to raise rents? Or is vacancy going to rise, occupancy drop, and I have to lower rents to get people in and try to maintain that? Am I going to be losing revenue? So is that revenue going to be decelerating or accelerating? That deals with supply and demand. Storage facility is all based around supply and demand. Too many people buy or too many people build, supply comes up, vacancy is lower, return drops. If I have a high demand market, well, most of the time I know that my future returns are going to be more, so there's lower risk. I may be willing to pay more for it. But if I know that there's lots of inventory coming on the market, it's oversupplied, risk for me, especially in 5 years, is going up, and I can't control that. So I just walk away. I stay away from those because the value is very low to me. There's some markets that are so overbuilt, I'm like, even at a 50% discount, I don't even want it, right? So it has to be severely discounted to me as the risk, not just the risk, but uncontrollable risks rise. Now, when you're looking at overall returns, when I find a stable marketplace, increasing the returns has a lot to do with what I'm able to do within the asset. I can add in lines of revenue, right? I can give offerings, more services, rate management, increase pricings. I can make it look and feel better. But more importantly, I have here supply and demand, a hack. Well, if I'm in a market where the operations, the people that are operating the storage facilities, no one's doing a really good job. Well, by advertising, I can artificially increase the supply and demand of that individual facility. Let me explain. The reason being is if I can find avenues where people are looking for storage, but no one is offering storage in those marketplaces, and I'm talking online, maybe mobile, maybe Facebook, Twitter, and nobody's offering it, but there is, and I come and offer it, the competition doesn't matter because I'm the only one there. Does that make sense? So we look a lot at that. That's how we can usually be price leaders in our market because our demand's higher. Now, that only works to a point. Once again, that's a hack, but in oversupplied markets, there's a certain point it just doesn't matter and all rents fail because there's so high. So when you're underwriting a storage facility and looking at value, saying simply, oh, I want a 6 cap, or it's worth a 4 cap here, it's worth an 8 cap there, and that's what I'm looking for, that doesn't make a ton of sense because value is arbitrary. It's different for everyone. And two, the things that make up those values, risks, returns, they change depending on the operations, market conditions, and it depends on how you underwrite it. Are you underwriting that with management fees, right? Are you underwriting that with 30% expense ratio or 11% expense ratio? If you have 11% expense ratio and a 30% expense ratio, the cap rate doesn't matter at that point. They're so different. I would be more than happy to buy a storage facility at a 4 cap that has a 50% expense ratio than one at an 8 cap that has 11, right? So you're looking at understanding the value and the returns you can make. Well, that depends on the expenses and how much you can go forward in the future. I know this is a lot, and I know that you're saying this isn't very clear at all. But what you need to look for when valuing a storage facility is you need to look at risks that are uncontrollable, okay? So you want to identify markets where no matter what you do, there's too much risk to be taken on. That makes the value lower, right? And then returns, you want to be looking at today's return, but also the future returns going and the controllables. How are you going to manage that? How are you going to control that? For me, because we're better at the controllables, I can take a bad asset and that's run down, that's got all these problems, and that actually has more value to me because I can project out more earnings in the future. I hope that makes sense. Value is a hard thing because it's arbitrary, but check out the podcast too. We talk more in depth about underwriting, managing, and controlling that value so you can overall increase it, make your assets more valuable, and give you more money.